As promised, I'm joined by the head coach at Fresno State. He has led Fresno State to the Mountain West Championship. He did so in the past season. 13-4 in 2 years at Fresno State. Fresno State, ranked 23rd nationally. They're at Idaho on Saturday. I'm joined by Bulldogs head coach Tim DeRuyter. Tim, great to have you in the jungle. How are you?
I'm doing awesome, Jim. Thanks for having me on.
Tim, it's great to have you on. Let me get your thoughts first about that win over Hawaii. You're coming off a 42-37 win, but you're up 42-3 in the third quarter. You know all that. As you look back on that game as a head coach, do you feel good about the way your guys hung on, or are you frustrated that you were in that situation where they had a chance to get you late with a Hail Mary?
Well, a little of both, to be frank. You know, you get up 42-3, and you're talking on the sideline about, okay, when do we get Derek Carr out of the game? We got to keep guys healthy, and you got to develop players. Next thing you know, we give up a long kickoff, and we got our twos in on defense, and they do a good job, go down the field and score, and we turn the ball over 4 straight times. And Mighty Mo hit us, and we held on. So we were fortunate to win, but I think one of the things is this team's kind of special. You know, we found a way to win late against Rutgers and late against Boise, and maybe that's just our MO.
Maybe so. You beat Rutgers 51-50 in OT. You beat Boise State 41-40. You have this close call against Hawaii. Obviously, Tim, as a head coach, you'd love to blow everybody out every single week. But what does it tell you about this group specifically, and how much confidence do you have in them in tough pressure situations?
Well, I think, the only way you find out about a team is put them through those tough pressure situations. And really impressed with our senior quarterback, Derek Carr. He stays poised whenever it's tough. And I think you build a special group of guys when they go through that gauntlet of having to find a way to make plays at the end of the games. 3 games, our defense was on the field the last play, having to make a stop. Didn't play great during the game, but they made the stop each of those 3 times. Tim
DeRuyter, my guest, Fresno State head coach. Tim, let's talk about Derek Carr. You run a pretty unique offense, or a different kind of offense, and you need a different kind of guy to run it. But before we get into the offense, I talked to Derek Carr on this show earlier this season. He shared the story of the birth of his son, Dallas. You were one of the first people that he called when Dallas was born. What do you remember about that first phone call?
Well, it was wild. I forget what day it was, about day 4 or 5 of training camp, and he calls me about midnight, and we knew Heather was due any day, and he called me and says, Coach, Heather's going into labor. I may not be at practice. Is that okay? And I kind of laughed at him. I said, dude, take care of your family, and we'll be fine. The next day is when I got the scary call, and it was about 3 in the morning. He called, and he was in tears and could barely talk, and I couldn't understand what he was saying. And he finally said, hey, Dallas is going to have surgery. A day-old son. He was pretty broke up about it, and I just told him, hey, hang in there. Keep your faith and be strong for your family. And fortunately, we got great care here in the Valley at Valley Children's Hospital, and they took care of Dallas, and he's been doing well.
Yeah, Tim, it's such a tough thing. It's the phone call that you dread as a head coach, the one that comes in the middle of the night. I mean, you're certainly their coach, but you're somewhat of a father figure to the players as well. What goes through your mind when you see one of your players go through something like that?
It's tough. When that phone rings at 3 in the morning, unfortunately, the first thing you're thinking is this from a police station somewhere? And I looked at the phone, and it was Derek Carr was on the line, and you're kind of in a daze a little bit, but I knew it wasn't from a police station because it was Derek, and it was just gut wrenching to talk to him about that, and you feel for him, and I mean he's 22 years old, he's married, he's got a child, and to go through this is really, really tough. And I just told him, hey, we'll be here for you, the team will be here for you. Just gut this thing through and be strong.
Thankfully, his son is fine, and they're fine, so it's all worked out so far. We're talking about Derek now, and he's getting some run, Tim, as a Heisman candidate. Initially, you probably were not very comfortable with that idea of an organized campaign, but now that it's underway, do you feel more comfortable with it? And now that you have the opportunity, lay it out for me. Why should people vote for him?
Well, I'll tell you, we talked about a potential Heisman campaign this summer with our sports information and promotions folks, and I was initially kind of dead set against it, and I thought about it for a while, and if it was any other player other than Derek, I don't think I would have done it. And I said, the only shot Derek's going to have is if we run the table. And I thought if we get to the Boise game, undefeated, get through that game, he would have had to have played well for us to do that. And, because of the fact that our conference is on ESPN, that was a national game, I thought if he deserves it, then we'll do it. And he's completing about 70% of his passes. He's led us to two big-time wins over, Rutgers, where we were down. We got to go down the field and score and win. He did that. Same thing in the Boise game. We're down the last couple of minutes. He goes down. He's a tremendous leader, tremendous kid, and I think he's as valuable to our team as any player in the country is to their team. And if we can somehow manage to get through this season undefeated, I think he needs to be in the discussion because just a value to our team.
Fresno State head coach Tim DeRuyter is my guest. Tim, when you beat Boise State 41-40, I mean they've been the gold standard in that conference for a long, long time. What does a win like that mean for the program, and what's it mean for you personally?
Oh, it's absolutely huge for the program. When I first got here, I think the first question from the media and every fan base that I went out to speak to was, are we going to beat Boise this year? It's been a monkey on our back for years, and you've got to hand it to Chris Peterson and before him Dan Hawkins. They've done a great job up there, and as you mentioned, they're the gold standard of the league. We've had a chip on our shoulder, with Boise, and to get that monkey off our back, so to speak, was absolutely huge. And our kids, I mean, it was an emotional win. It was emotional for me. And to see our guys, the relief of staring down the giant and at least for one day, slaying him was huge.
All right, so you stare down that giant, you slay the giant, and all of a sudden now you're talking about, well, what if we run the table? Or it's being brought up. So now all of a sudden there's talk, Tim, about you being a potential BCS buster. I know you've heard it. Is it something that you embrace, or is it something you want your team to just ignore?
Well, we talk about it, because we anticipated this. It was funny. My brother-in-law bought me some earplugs for our entire team, and we handed them out a few weeks ago before Boise. We anticipated, when we got voted in the top 25, there's going to be all this external noise, and we just wanted as a symbol to remind our guys, ignore the noise. It has nothing to do with our preparation. All we got to do is control what we can control, and we've got the talent if we play well together and execute to beat everybody on our schedule. We know that, but if we start listening to the outside noise, we can get derailed in a hurry. So we've just got to stay the course and ignore the noise.
Fresno State head coach Tim DeRuyter for a few more moments with us. Tim, you run that no-huddle offense. You're running it very well, but as a former linebacker in college and a defensive coach coming up, did it take you a little time to get used to?
Absolutely. When I went to Texas A&M and you coordinate defenses in the Big 12, those type of offenses kind of drive you nuts, and it really changes the game when you look at a Texas A&M versus Alabama game, and an Alabama defense who's probably one of the best in the country, giving up 600 yards and 40-something points. This type of offense changes, I think, the way people play. And as a defensive coordinator, it's kind of against your nature, but I know it's something that fans absolutely love. It for our team to have a guy like Derek Carr and our weapons around him, I think it really accentuates what we can do to win games, and you're never out of a game. So I've embraced it. It's funny, after we beat Rutgers 50-something to 50-something, I got a text from Coach Sherman, our former head coach at Texas A&M, said, hey, congratulations on a great win. I see you're an offensive guru head coach now.
Funny. I mean, so is it a phase? Is it a fad? Or is this the future of the game?
I think it's right now the future of the game. Like I said, from being on the other side of it, trying to coordinate against those kind of offenses, it's tough. It's very, very difficult. And I thought, if I ever get a shot, let's make some other poor defensive coordinator, stress a little bit. What it does is it makes people make tackles in space, and you create one-on-one situations, and guys are gassed a little bit. You're one explosive play away from a score all the time, as opposed to having to bang it down the field and physically impose your will on somebody. So I think it's, like I said, fun for people to watch. And you look at teams like Baylor and Northwestern that, maybe in years past couldn't compete. You can put in spread, fast, up-tempo offense, and you can compete against anybody.
Hey, Tim, before you go, you mentioned the Big 12. Talk to me for a minute about football and being in Central California. I can remember when I went to college in Santa Barbara, and I saw Fresno State firsthand way back in the day, and their fan base was amazing. I remember their baseball team would come into town, and they would travel so big, and it was the passion, the energy, the intensity. It really was something to see. And when Fresno State is good, it's all great there. For those who don't know, what's it like at Bulldog Stadium when that place is really, really rocking?
I'll tell you, it's unreal. The Red Wave supports us, unlike any, I think, in California at all. It really is different here in the Central Valley. It's very much like Texas, where the whole town knows who's playing, this week, and it was a crazy scene when we beat Boise, and we anticipate it's going to be better each week.
Let me ask you about your D coordinator. Can't let you go without asking you about Nick Toth. Listen, first of all, I mean, I appreciate his love for the show. That makes me feel real good. But when I look at your offense getting all that attention, when you run a no-huddle offense, that puts a lot of pressure on the defense. What do you make of the job he's done with the defense?
It really does. I'll tell you, Nick and I have gone back a long time. We used to listen to your show. I think I turned him on to you because I'm from Southern California and used to listen to you when I was out recruiting. I said, you got to check this guy out when you're out recruiting. And Nick's loved you, but he's doing a fantastic job. I coached him back at Ohio when he was a player. He's coached with me out there, and I took him to A&M with me. Last year, he put in our 3-4 defense and has really done a great job. This year, we've struggled. We've given up some big plays, but overall, we're getting better each week, and that's our charge. And all we got to do is be better than the other team's defense each week, and so far we're 4-0 in that.
Yeah, I appreciate you hooking him up with the show way back. Tim, you mentioned you're from Southern California, so as you might imagine, your name has come up as a possibility at the USC job. How are you going to approach things like that? I mean, do you owe it to yourself to at least answer the phone if it rings?
Well, it's part of that noise that's out there. I think I'm one of 116 people on their short list, so I don't worry about those kind of things. I'm much more worried about, just trying to go 1-0 each and every week.
We're talking to Tim DeRuyter. One last thing. When you were the D coordinator at Texas A&M, you were getting ready to face RG3 in Baylor, and there was a freshman by the name of Johnny Manziel who was running the scout team offense. Can you give me just one quick thought about Manziel? How did everybody miss on him so badly?
Well, I don't know that they missed on him. He was a tremendous athlete and was the Texas, I think, 5A Player of the Year that year. We were fortunate to get him, and he was a scout teamer for us, and I've told this story a few times, but we're getting ready to play RG3, and he drove our defense nuts. I think he ran for 600 yards that week, in practice. And, I'm getting after our defense thinking we're not even going to slow RG3 down if we can't tackle this freshman. Well, we ended up beating Baylor on Saturday, and RG3 had 50 yards and on, maybe a dozen carries. And we were happy, and we had a couple players telling us, hey, Coach, that Manziel kid's harder to tackle than RG3. And I said, shut up, you're just blowing smoke. And they say, no, for real. And last year when I watched the Alabama game, I gave a little more credibility to their assessment.
Great story. All right, Fresno State ranked 23rd going up against Idaho on Saturday. Tim DeRuyter, the head coach. Tim, great to have you on the show. Thanks for spending so much time with us, and good luck to you.
I appreciate it. And tell Doc Detola, he's a St. John Bosco Brave like me. Tell him hi next time he's on.
You know it. You know it, Tim. All right, so now his D coordinator has shouted out to Jolene, and the head coach himself just name drop Doc Mike Detola because they went to the same high school. I got the D coordinator shouting out to the hack-off winner. I've got the head coach himself who turned the D coordinator onto the program way back in the day, shouting out to a smack-off winner. It's got me thinking. I appreciate that, Coach. Thank you very much. It's got me thinking, how many other coaches out there are we getting through recruiting? He just said it. He told his D coordinator way back in the day. You got to check this guy out now, Nick Toth. You got to check this guy out. Be good. Nick Toth tweeted at me earlier today, it gets me through spring recruiting. All right, let's take a short time out. We actually moved Donnie Avery up. My thanks to Fresno State and Tim DeRuyter.